Hi, Tim Sells here. In this video, I'm going to be talking about study habits that have earned me millions of dollars. And the idea here is, you've heard knowledge is power, right? Is it true? No, it's not. There's something else, and that's what I'm going to talk about here. For those of you that have been following me for quite some time, you'll be happy to know that we have transitioned up to learn the subjects. For those of you who are not familiar with me or my channel, this right here is how all sales and getting employees and anything else, basically, this right here is the process by which you acquire a customer or acquire a representative in network marketing or acquire an employee or acquire a student to come to your college or a congregation member to come to your church. In other words, it doesn't matter where, how, it's always this process. And I've got a young son, and we were talking, and he's thinking about like all kinds of being, you know, what he wants to be when he grows up, kind of things. And then he kind of stops after a whole bunch of stuff, and he goes, "Dad, what do you do?" And it was really kind of funny because the way that I presented it to him is I said, you know, if you learn this skill, then you can grow any business or organization that you ever want to. But if you don't know this, then you're going to have to hire somebody to do it. And so he said, "Well, I want to learn this." And I go, "Oh boy, here we go." It would be my honor to teach my son. But so this is what everybody needs to do to grow a business. All right. But what I found is that when I show it to them, some people just kind of like don't quite move. They don't go into it. They don't dive into it. They don't like really start hitting on that lead generation. How do I generate a lead? And, you know, and then contacting them. Well, what in the world do I say? And, you know, and then setting the appointment for what? A presentation. Well, what do I say at the presentation? Like they don't quite get it. And so what I have to do is that I back up and I created a bridge to this pipeline. In other words, these steps that I have here, I've been talking about on my channel for, I don't know, the last 6 months or so. And so you're welcome to go back and learn these subjects if you're not really kind of getting after it on the pipeline. All right, so we're now in the new section called Learn the Subjects. All right, and so each one of these columns is a subject. And if you were in school, this would be a book, right? Or a whole course, a year course or something. All right. So I want to tell you a little bit about my history having to do with study. All right. So from middle school through high school, I was an F- student. Okay. I've actually seen on my grades an F-. In other words, there was like, I don't know, some 60 average or something like that. You had to get 60% on a test. And I made so far below 60, or I had so few right below 60% that they gave me an F-. Okay? I knew I could not learn. That was my belief. And I was 100% accurate every year. All right? So that was really my past. Very poor pronunciation of words. I had a real issue with it, okay? Because, I don't know, nobody ever really taught me to pronounce words other than people that I hung around with. I grew up in the South Tennessee, and so I just didn't pronounce words. And I was afraid of them because people would laugh at me when I pronounced them wrong. And so I hid this weakness by mumbling. Okay? And you don't solve a problem by hiding it. I promise. It doesn't ever go away. Especially something like talking. Very poor spelling. Probably having to do with this. I hid my problem spelling by sloppy handwriting. And so if it was, you know, I don't know, I before E, and I didn't know which one, if E before I. And so what I would do is I would write sloppy and make them look almost the same and put a dot in the middle. So that's kind of the way that I went about it. My videographer is laughing behind me, behind the camera there. I had zero confidence that I could talk to a prospect. Okay, so you got to understand that when I showed that pipeline, and if you got this kind of like icky feeling like, oh my gosh, I couldn't do that. Well, I just want to tell you that, and there's a gentleman that I spent many, many years with in the military, and we call him Bam Bam as his nickname, and I'm not going to say his real name, but he comments sometimes on my videos, and he's like, I can't believe you, man. You know, things like that, because, you know, everybody would say he never talks. Tim never talks. I went to visit him in Jacksonville, Florida, and we spent time with his family. And his mom was, you know, we were all walking out to the truck to get in and drive back. And his mom goes, does he ever talk? And like I would sit all the way through breakfast or dinner or whatever and never talk. I just, you know, I was afraid that if I communicated that I would show my ignorance. That's what it was. All right. I knew zero about business other than mowing yards. Okay. I didn't know what to talk about. And I was always afraid that somebody would say to me, well, what business experience do you have? How can you talk to me about a business if you've never done anything other than this? You know, so that's kind of my background. So knowledge, I'll talk about that one here. So what happened? What changed? Let me go back here. Okay, so what changed? It was Navy Spec Ops. That's what changed. All right, so Spec Ops stands for Special Operations. What they do is that they focus on one thing, which is drill it, whatever it is that you have to know, until you can't do it wrong. Drill it until you can't do it wrong, whether that be drawing a weapon, firing a weapon. It doesn't mean, you know, if you're really bad at calculating the amount of time that you've been on the bottom of the ocean floor, and you have to go through, you know, like you have to come up slow and you have to stay down there. And so there's a lot of math having to do with time and such, and you have to stay out of the water for a certain amount of time. You have to calculate all those things. And so if you couldn't get it, well, what would you do? You would drill it until you couldn't do it wrong, because we can't have errors like that on a dive boat, right? Same thing with bomb squad. We had to learn nuclear physics, and because we were like, you know, might be called in on to defuse a nuclear weapon. And so we needed to know nuclear physics. We needed to know blast ranges, not for nukes, but for other types of explosives and stuff. And so all of this hit me, you know, like algebra and all that stuff. It was like somehow I got it because I was focusing on drilling it until I couldn't do it wrong. And I knew I was going to be doing it as long as I passed the course. And so I really did it with a whole lot of intention to make it go, right? So now I don't study to learn. I study to know so that I can do. Why do you think I'm having this conversation? It's because I'm heading into teaching you the actual steps that you can make an enormous amount of money with. This isn't something like I want to learn how to, I don't know, I like play a guitar, or, you know, like I have like hobbies that I like to do sometimes. And I'm not talking about that here. This is something that I want you to really get, so that when you study my material, you've just got to get in here and think about it from this perspective. Don't study it to learn it. Don't sit back and watch it. Don't be looking at texts while it's going. Now, I'm not trying to tell you what to do. I'm trying to tell you, if you want to get results like I have, then I highly recommend that you study to know it so that you can do it. Because a lot of people have spent more years than I've been in the industry studying it, but never doing it. It's a different way to study. It's keeping constant intention, that right there, constant intention, the whole time that you're studying something, to know the subject so that you can do what you're learning, or what I'm learning in this situation. So that's the way that I study. And sometimes, like I might be studying something and I'm going along and I blank out and I start thinking about something else. Then I need to go back to before I blanked out and started thinking of something else. I need to go backwards and I need to pick back up. So that means rewinding the video. But then it's even more than that. After I get through the video, like in your situation, like you're watching these videos and things like this. So at the end of it, I ask you to like, share, and comment. Why? Well, it's very simple, is that YouTube has an algorithm, and an algorithm is nothing more than if this person gets someone to watch all the way to the end and like and share and comment, what that does is that it will show my video, that video, to other people who have, I don't know, a cookie inside of their computer that says that they watched a network marketing video. So, but what I've never said, and I wished I'd said every time, is drill this until you can't do it wrong. That's what I wish I had said. So from now on, I'm not going to say that. Might drive some people away. But I'm talking about people who really want to make network marketing work. And I'm sharing with you now those real detailed things that I do and did in order to build. Now, when I got into network marketing, I knew drill it till you can't do it wrong. But what I didn't know was what to study. What to study. Because I had never seen anything more dispersed than the network marketing industry. And when I say dispersed, is that people seemed to master not doing the thing that makes money, or the things, plural, that make money. That just, I couldn't believe it, to tell you the truth. I'm like, how can I go to this many trainings and it's never the same thing? Because when I would drill weapons, it was always a weapon. It was, and it was always drawing the weapon, firing the weapon safely, blah, 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 or whatever it was. And so I couldn't believe it. And so I needed to figure it out. So here's just so that you see and can for yourself see why I chose this thing called the pipeline. It is because since I couldn't find the answers out there, all I did is I simply wrote on paper what my sponsor did for me to join. That's all that I did. So I'm going to walk you through that. Rick put an advertisement in the Washington Post newspaper. I called him because it had a phone number to call. He invited me to watch a VHS video that he would send me. Okay, so that was setting an appointment for me to see a presentation, right? And so I watched it. I called him and told him that I was interested on his voicemail. He didn't answer the phone. He called me, invited me to a meeting. We went back and forth for 2 months because I got sent up to Boston to go to a radiography school. And then when I came back, so he had followed up all of that time that I was gone, and then we got together again and I joined. Okay, so what do I drill until I can't do it wrong? I wrote it. This is what it came out to be. That this was the pattern that always exists in every industry. Okay, I ask many people for the sequence. In other words, this is the sequence of how they recruit or were recruited. It's never changed. People say, well, gosh, what was happening back in like 1989 when I was learning this? Well, it was blazing speed of fax machine. like it really was. That was cutting edge technology we were using those days. So we were sending VHS videos to people or audio cassette tapes to people. Okay, so come to right now, year 2022, what are we doing? Well, we're doing pattern-wise the same stuff. It's just the medium has changed. It's not cassette tapes. It's not VHS, right? So now we are, running ads on Facebook, or we've got a following on Facebook, and so we reach out to them and things like that, okay? Oh, and the presentation is often an instant, right? Because it's online. So anybody can do it. So this is still valid. Okay, so I still have to set an appointment for a Zoom meeting. All right. So, all right. It's validated. I've validated it across every industry I can look at. It doesn't matter where I am. I'm always evaluating it. Every time I get on an airplane, sit in first class, I'm always talking to somebody who's sitting next to me. And I'll ask them what kind of business they're in. And I ask them about the sales cycle. Like, how do you get customers? What's the process? And so, and it doesn't matter what words he says or she, I am able to plot it precisely on this. So I'm going through this so that you don't have any doubt in your mind that this is the only way that you can acquire a customer or rep. There is no customer that I have ever gotten that I didn't show a presentation to somehow. I walk in and I buy clothes at an outlet or a store or something like that, a Nike store. Okay? How does that happen? All right, well, they chose to put themselves in a outlet or in a mall so that there's walk-by traffic. All right, that's how they generate their leads. I walk by, I walk in, maybe somebody comes and contacts me at the door and says, can I help you? Or I just look at the presentation. All right, and then I purchase, maybe. If not, normally a person there doesn't follow up. But if I buy something, they try to get my number to follow up. You ever say, what zip code are you in? And you'd say, and then, what's your phone number? You're like, well, hang on now. This is a little fresh. You're getting a little fresh with me here. So now you see, like, this process is always the same. And I want you to just really know it absolutely, because that way you can push off every other thing that is a distraction to you making money. And that is, if I were to tell you, because a lot of people hypothesize about this and say, the reason people don't make money in network marketing is blah, blah, blah. All right. I know why they don't do it. They don't do this. That's why they don't make money, or they don't even take the time to learn it. All right. So I want to now give you an example of drilling it. Okay. So, and you can just imagine in diving or in bomb squad or skydiving or something like that. It's best to drill it until you can't do it wrong before you're on a live bomb, right? That makes sense to you? It would probably be good to have an empty gun when you're training in order to start off and get all the steps down right? That makes sense, right? I hope so, because a lot of people immediately look at this and go, oh, I couldn't do that, right? Because they're not thinking with what I was thinking with, which is to get a fake of the thing and drill that until I can't do it wrong before I go put myself in front of a real prospect. Okay? And so this right here was about a year before I joined network marketing, for the first time. And I know because of the camera and because it's on here, you can't see this little paw that's sitting out right here and these little ears right here and that right there. Well, that was Buckshot. Okay, so she was my diving buddy. So every time I went underwater, she would jump in the water and swim around and around right above me, trying to figure out where I went. Right? And so she became the mascot of Navy dive team down in Fort Lauderdale. So I would get up. I ended up having to drop her off at my home in Tennessee because I couldn't have a dog where I lived. And so I bought a stuffed animal that was a it looked just like she did, black lab. All right, so Buckshot, my pretend prospect. So I'm sitting over here in the contact column, plus a tape recorder, plus drilling. Drilling is repetition, doing it over and over and over again. So I want you to just imagine that because of my shortcomings that I created, pronunciation and mumbling and never talking, what I did is that I set up the tape recorder over here. I've set Buckshot up on the end of the table. And this was a kitchen table. And I would sit on this end and I would present something to Buckshot with the tape recorder right there. And then I would get done, I would walk over and I'd pick up the tape recorder and I would play it. And I would listen if it made any sense, if I was slurring my words, if I was talking too softly. And so before I start, like I would hear one or two or three words coming out of this thing and I'd be like, oh my gosh. And so what was happening is that as I was talking over here, the communication, if it were visible, it would go and it would die before it even got to the prospect. And that's and this was picking up that it was dying before it got there. And so I started just standing over in this corner and just talking like I am right now, because now there's a camera. Okay? The first time I got in front of a camera, it took me days of just staring at the camera because the camera doesn't give me feedback. It doesn't say anything back. It doesn't nod. It doesn't get frustrated and, I can't read it. You know what I mean? And so I had to get used to that. It's not innate. That's what I'm trying to tell you. And so this I did in order to drill it till I couldn't do it wrong, confidence to talk to prospects. And so this plus this plus this equaled confidence to go out and talk to a real prospect. You get the idea of this. And so every single time I would get an objection, I would write it. So when I was on the phone with a prospect, I would write the objection down. And then I would call my upline and I would say, how do you handle this particular objection? And he'd give me clues. He'd give me like answers and stuff like that. And so then I would flip the card over and I would write, how do you handle that objection on the back? And so while I was driving to work, it was about a 25-minute drive. The whole time I would just, I'd shuffle the deck, I'd pull one out, and I would talk to the car in front of me. That was my prospect. And I would answer the objections and I would drill those things until I couldn't do it wrong. Every one of them. So now you can see that this was the process that I did. Okay? And it was however I had to set it up. Some of you may have sales experience and you don't have to go through this part. Good. All right? I know that a lot of people, if you're, depending upon what generation you're born in, a lot of times you guys don't even talk. You just text. Okay? And it's not a lot different. Okay? Because what happens here is that you're going to have to learn how to contact the person, and basically do the same things. I'm going to drill down in deep about exactly what you're trying to do in the contact phase, what you're trying to do in the appointment phase, and what you do in the presentation phase, and so forth. All right, so I kind of gave you a clue, by the way, those of you who've been on my channel forever. The very first video that I ever recorded is Network Marketing Success, Who Earns Millions, Who Earns Zero, and Why. All right, and so that's another one that I recommend that you watch. It was the very first one. I was really dropping the clue exactly what was coming, okay, eventually, all right? So what it is that it doesn't matter what you look at, whatever subject you look at, there's an ability level. Okay, so I have an ability to talk on the phone. I have an ability to create a slide. I have an ability to do whatever. And I'm either bad at it, mediocre, good, excellent, or elite at it. Right? Just about everything. And so in school, they would give you a grade, F, D, C, B, A. Right? In relationships, there's certain things that happen. So that's what I talked about. And like I laid out my 30 years of doing the business and what I always witnessed with different people that I would sponsor, different people that others would sponsor that I would end up working with. And this column over here ended up being the main thing, all right? So, does with training. That's the column that really mattered to me, okay? What does that mean? This was training interest. Did they have a training interest? Okay, so if you were bad in network marketing, your grade would have been F. Your relationships, what would you do to them? Unprofessional, you'd damage relationships, you'd lie, you'd spam people. Action, very low, sporadic, like I was in school. Very low knowledge, lose money every year. Training interest, none. Does with training, doesn't train. What I was trying to walk everybody through when I recorded this video was where we were going to go, which is where we are now, is that down this column is everything. Does with training. Okay, so if you are mediocre, D, and here I have how much money you make. Complains about training, watches some of it, requires upline to answer questions. All right, so they have low training interest, but this is what they do with training. Okay, so they won't just watch a video and learn something. They've got to call specifically their upline and ask them something. And then they don't ever share it with their organization. All right, the next one down here is good. That's a C grade. And so one-way training, they won't rehearse it. So they'll receive it, but they won't rehearse it. Here, somebody who's going to make $250,000 a year, roughly, is they'll rehearse it until they get it right. The elite people, the ones who are going to make millions, they're going to rehearse it until they can't do it wrong. I said this like 3 years ago. All right, but I had to go through all of the questions and objections that I had ever gotten because so few people actually believed in the network marketing industry. Until I started like doing these comparisons with real estate and doing these comparisons with YouTubers and social influencers and Amazon sales, and I would do like real statistical analysis on all of them, all right? And everybody got to see, oh gosh, network marketing is incredible. Yeah, no kidding. I've been trying to tell you that. But I couldn't tell you how to do this because at that time, most people knew it to be something that wasn't professional, that was a scam, or that was a pyramid, or something like that. And I walked through every single one of those. All right, so drill the pipeline until you can't do it wrong. That's what I'm telling you now. There's 130 videos before this one. No, there's a lot more than that. There's 130 videos that were just on questions and answers that I had answered over the years. And so I haven't gotten a new objection for 20 years. So I had learned them all, and occasionally something will come up, but but they're only extensions of one that I had already learned. All right. So there's not a single video that I've recorded that wasn't something I had to learn to do. Every one of these. I had to learn to do it. And most of the time I had to rehearse it. Okay. So I do recommend that you drill it, because all of these videos I didn't do for me. All these videos is so that I could, like in the military, we have this concept when you're leaving one duty station to go to another duty station, and a duty station is where you're going to serve. And so if I learned really well how to hold my post or dive or defuse bombs or whatever it was, then I needed to write up every single thing that I did and hand it to the incoming person who's going to take my position. And so that's called writing up your hat. And what I'm doing here is I'm writing up my hat. I'm showing everybody exactly what I did in order to learn this stuff, and also what to learn, right? So please comment. What's your view on studying with the intent to do? All right, like that's a conscious decision, all right? Drilling it until you can't do it wrong, and knowledge by itself, power, is it? Okay, so now you can comment, like, share, and subscribe, please. And join our Telegram group if you want to do so, because people are able to ask me questions, and then I get to come up and answer these questions for people and for the person, but then everybody gets to see it and stuff. So, all right, so thanks so much for watching this.